I could go on ranting about the problems in Nepali movies on and on and on ahead in different videos titled around various problematic topics, but for today let's settle to the one genre which in my view has a huge potential to turn out into a largely successful venture, but the way our filmmakers approach it makes me feel like it's a genre which was conceptualized and shot by a 12-year-old kid with a GoPro strapped to his chest. The wacky and the same time interesting, we are going to discuss about horror and how not to craft a movie like Nepali horror. Horror is one of the navaras of the art form, which is Bhayanak Ras. Horror genre, with all its subgenres like folk period horror, paranormal, found footage, slasher or serial killers are very much made world famous in the pop culture by Hollywood and Bollywood movies like The Witch, Conjuring, Friday the 13th, Wrong Turn, Darna Manahe 1920, etc. Nepali movies also have tried to get into this specific genre. The oldest I could find was Pipal, starring Pooja Chand and Sri Krishna Shrestha, which was a paranormal love story. Then followed a series of trials to catch up on the genre, from commendable attempts like Ek Din Ek Raat and Zhigrana to diabolically torturous and absolutely hilarious Sunkeshari and Ram Kahani to the latest on this genre, Ghar. It doesn't surprise me that movies which can be counted on fingers are made relating to this genre. We know Nepali movies and makers' obsession with multi-star comedy and cringy romantic movies, and nobody wants to experiment on a genre which does not guarantee capital return. I absolutely respect and have a huge admiration towards Arpan Thapa, who is working hard to make this genre alive in Nepali silver screen with the movies like Sunkeshari and Ghar. The risks involved in these type of project is massive, and for which I applaud him from bottom of my heart. But he seriously needs to reconsider many things if he wants to carry on making more horror movies in future. This video is not just only targeted towards him, but to all the previous and upcoming makers who are jumping into this genre without understanding how this genre works holistically. Let's understand horror first. What exactly is horror? Horror is that feeling which creates a sense of terror, shock, fear, and dread among the audiences or reader depending upon the medium. So the movies which incite the feeling among us through scenes, sound design and plot can be generally described as horror movie. The great film critic Roger Ebert talks about horror movies as all a horror film need promise is horror. The unspeakable, the terrifying, the merciless, the lurching monstrous figure of destruction. It needs no stars, only basic production values, just the ability to promise horror. Which is very true, but how to get this feeling of horror and what are its elements? Another filmmaker, Ari Aster, who is the director of critically and commercially hit movies like Hereditary and Midsommar, says horror films are much more upsetting and frightening if you are invested in the characters. It was always just very important to me that these were the people that you cared about, so that when things happen to them, it's not just spectacle but it feels like a betrayal. So horror is a feeling which has the deepest impact when it's internal rather than external. So let's take an example. It's 1 AM at the night and you are camping along with your friends, and one of them tells you a story about ghosts with very nuanced detail, and right after that you have to go to take a piss out in the dark. Just imagine the situation and try to see that the slightest of something moving in the bush or breaking of a twig or crying of an animal would take your breath away. All that if you are brave enough to go out to piss alone without calling your friend. Now imagine the same situation, you are camping outside, but instead of telling you a spooky story, one of your friends frightens you with a jump scare out of nowhere. Yes, you would be startled for a while, but that's ephemeral. So which one has the more effective and longing effect, you decide. So let's begin about the problems in Nepali horror movies. The first and foremost problem is movies not being made in this genre. After this comes the series of list of problems which our horror movies are just not doing right. I will try to incorporate them one by one. A movie's true identity is given by its stylistic use of colors. Yes, if the movie is romantic and full of life, then the bursting saturated palettes seem appropriate. But when you are making a horror movie, there needs to be set a tone to the whole movie to get the gist that we are watching a horror movie, like washed out faded look in these movies. But horror movies here are full of life with busting colors all around. And the other important part of a horror movies is its sound design. You can't just rely on sudden raise in volume of sound and mark it as a fearful moment. Sound must be layered out gradually such that the rising crescendo of the music increases tension among the audiences until it pays off in big scare.
So really, Agamemnon had no choice. Clytemnestra is driven by revenge, just like Orestes.
Yes, jump scare can induce fear, but it's solely due to shock and not horror. True horror is when you are swept beneath your feet by something startling on the screen. True horror can cause lingering effect of distress even the movie is over. The unanswered questions that stay with you while you sleep at night after watching a good horror movie. Like I have said earlier in the sound design, when you are using a jump scare, there must be a build up towards the final scare, such that audiences are swept beneath their feet.
It said Dalton. I can still hear that voice.
But in our Nepali movies, jump scares are the only weapon filmmakers use, and that without any particular build-up. They are just randomly placed to startle the audiences from their seats. The best way to use jump scare is not to overuse it, but here jump scares are used in abundance. I mean, lots and lots of jump scares. It's actually a good thing to use the horror tropes, generally paying homage to the creators, but overdo it and the whole movie feels like a formulaic piece of crap woven together by the thin piece of stereotypes. The most common horror tropes and stereotypes include the cat scare, door creak, possession by ghosts, the gush of wind, or just like in the movie Ghar and Sunkeshari, a haunted house with a dark past, and evergreen jump scares. The sound in a horror movie is the soul of the movie overall. It's the main thing that communicates with the audiences. The sudden and loud screech in the name of terrifying the audience is old school. The BGM could add the missing element which can further raise the effect of horror. Imagine this soundtrack of foreign movies which uses the sound of cello, which is effective in horror movies. But instead, what do we choose to add is this. If you take any good horror movies of Hollywood and Bollywood, makers there engrave an element of audience participation, a hint for us to catch which holds important plot points to the movie ahead. Like in these scenes from the famous movie Us, Get Out, Hereditary, and Midsommar. These small but effective techniques straight makes audiences feel like a part of the storytelling and reward them further when the plot unfolds later. There is absolutely no use of this technique in any horror movies or even in other Nepali movies, except iota of exceptions. Our horror movie evidently lacks the backbone of a storytelling and movie making, which is the story itself. There are events happening on screen, and if you don't engage me with the characters' backstory and events, how would I feel compassionate towards any character when he or she is going through a troubled times? If you are showing me a horror movie about a haunted house, where is the backstory of the characters living there? Where is the plot that drives the movie? I just don't want to see some people entering the haunted house and getting possessed and threatened by evil spirits. I want to know what would have happened before, what were their stories. If you are introducing a character to me and just after 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes, you are making me see a love song between the characters, and that also in a horror movie, don't expect me to feel any emotions towards that character if anything happens to him later. If used sparsely and effectively, even silence in many scenes can bring you that level of terror and horror that even Jumpscare would not bring. The sound of silence lingering over the atmosphere on a screen not only builds up the anticipation but develops that eerie vibes. Movies like Alien, The Witch has used these techniques quite effectively. A movie Quiet Place is actually built entirely upon this technique and it also delivers the desired result. What are the feelings or emotions that you'd like to experience or expect from a horror movie to entice within you when you go and watch a horror movie? Terror, horror, trauma, fear, or disgust? Watching a Nepali horror movie is like completely a different story altogether. There's romance, there's drama, there's comedy, and there's element of tragedy and whatnot. Do we need all these masala factors in a freaking horror movie? Yes, occasional humor inside the story is somewhat okay, just to make audiences divert from the reign of terror and right after when their guards are down and surprise them with even more bizarre and twists and scares. Here in Nepali movies, we have characters entirely based on the humor whose job is to spill some unwanted humor throughout the horror movie. The thing that Nepali horror movies majorly lack is unpredictability. We can sense and can tell a scare is coming from far, far away. This utter lack of unpredictability makes the movie dull. If you closely watch foreign movies, every action and character's choice is totally unexpected, which only adds to the additional horror of the movie. With the new makers like Ari Aster, Jordan Peele and Robert Eggers completely changing what the genre of horror stands for, they are including and experimenting with the various elements that could be added to horror. Hence, we get to witness some new experimental movies like in Jordan Peele's Get Out, Us, and Ari Aster's Hereditary and Midsommar. Even the Bollywood movie Tumbad is an exceptional take on the horror genre. The unprecedented genres of horror are completely rejected by our local filmmakers, and we only make movies about the haunted house movies. I again repeat that we have huge potential in horror which can even be seen back by many famous filmmakers.
हाम्रोमा हरर एक्सप्लोर नै गरिरहेको छैन हरर एकदमै राम्रो जनर हो हैन त्यो मार्केटको कुरा भने युएस को कुरा भने त्यो हरर जनर लिएर आफूलाई मन लागेको कुरा त्यसमा घुसाउन सकिन्छ भन्देखि चाहिँ व्हाई नट ट्राई गरे हुन्छ जस्तो मैले उलाई फिल्मलाई चाहिँ एकदमै आर्ट हाउस ड्रामा नै गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने चाहिँ छैन.
The another unsettling aspect while watching a horror movie on YouTube is this. I can only hope that in this futile industry, which only backs the love story or highest movie stories, horror would still be out of the concern for now. We need someone dynamic like the foreign makers, and I'm actually happy to see Mr. Bhimsen Lama coming forward to experiment in this genre with his upcoming movie Kathputli. The poster and the premise seems promising, and what made me exuberant was his research on the background of the subject horror, and I hope that he has implemented the same in his first feature movie as well. I just wanted to wish him and his team all the best for Kathputli, which might be a path-breaking movie in regards to horror genre of Nepali movies. Nepal has abundance of cultural heritages filled with folklores, fables and stories passed from ancestors that we tell our children as a bedtime story or friends as a story. All these stories can be turned out into their individual screen time in big movies. Lastly, I just wanted to say that I am a nobody to teach filmmakers how to direct or craft a movie, but I am just presenting the facts which we have been seeing multiple times in our horror movies, which needs to be changed in order to revamp this genre altogether. I just hope for the best. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I shall be back with more contents hopefully soon. Till then, share this video, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new to the family. I shall meet you in my next video. Until then, peace out.